Welcome back to another episode, guys. I truly apologize for last week's lack of episode. I was trying my best to keep myself on schedule, but I was truly too under the weather. I could barely even get myself off the couch. But I promised to try and make it up to you with today's episode. And I actually wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit for this week's. I want to take a more critical look at the self improvement or self help industry as a whole, because although I think that there are immeasurable benefits by pursuing self growth and holding yourself accountable and really pushing yourself to strive for more, I do think that there are some features that we really need to keep a more critical eye on so we don't fall into a trap of needing to always be improving or always being critical on ourselves and really not allowing ourselves to grow naturally and accept that, failure sometimes is part of the process. So, this is something that I really want to acknowledge. I want to also understand and kind of convey that in many cases, especially in modern society, we almost shun the people that are not making something of their lives, that are not achieving, making these $1 million deals and, driving all the fancy cars and buying jets and whatever. And this is something that I think is leading to a lot of a lack of empathy with people of various classes of financial status and people of different backgrounds. And I think it is something that we really need to keep an eye on while we're pursuing our own path of growth. So I think, as I've always said before, I think it's important also to try and understand a little bit of context before we dive into this problem and understand its history. I think it's very interesting to also look at the historical perspective of what it meant to be successful. Now, when we can look at, for example, the Old English term for someone that was homeless or a poor person, they were just known as someone that was unfortunate, and in other words, they were subject to the whims of Fortuna, which is the Roman god of fortune. And if you look to the past, people were very, very superstitious and religious about this. There were constant sacrifices to the gods of fortune in the hopes that they could have prosperous crops that year, or that they would win a battle, or, something else important and significant would go their way in life. And this just highlighted how in the past, we truly felt that it was more an external factor than an internal factor that would decide our fate. Whereas now, if you look at, for example, the most individualistic society in the world, the States, America, poor people are typically just called losers. And there is a very, very significant mentality shift that has gone through over the past few hundred years that has led to that definition or that word being used. It really does reflect the societal attitude towards these people, and it basically removes the idea that there could have been external factors or just bad luck that could have landed that person in the situation that they are. And I think it's very critical that we can actually acknowledge this, because I think it's something that's lost in most modern day societies. Western society, as we know it, is what's known as a meritocracy. We deem and we establish a value for one another based on our accomplishments and our successes. And this ostensibly promises equal opportunity and reward for hard work, but it can lead to a very severe lack of empathy to those that are in less fortunate positions. Alain de Botton, a famous British author and someone that I consider to be a modern day philosopher, stated brilliantly that when we posit a world in which those at the top deserve to be at the top, we are by implication positing a world in which those at the bottom deserve to be at the bottom. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I heard that stated, it really hit me, because it's something that I never even had thought of, that by wanting and striving for all this success and whatnot, and wanting to achieve and be better than others, in a way we are almost dooming those that aren't as driven or aren't as goal oriented, which there's nothing wrong about that, but we are dooming them to being second class, which is absolutely not fair. And I think it's something that really shook my whole perspective of self-improvement and self-growth, hopefully for the better. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I really want to look at the fact that through this lens, we're forgetting that luck plays a significant part in our outcomes. I know for my own sake, I wouldn't even be in the position that I am if it wasn't for luck. If it wasn't for the professor that happened to respond to my email when I was looking for a first internship, I would never have landed in Canada. If I never landed in Canada, I never would have pursued my graduate studies. I would never have met the people that I have. I would never have made the connections that I have and achieved the things that I have. So I consider a lot of my success to be just pure luck. So I think that it's also very fair to say that in some cases, some people just might not be as lucky. Just as some people have had lucky situations that have landed them in good jobs or good relationships or in good areas or, whatever that may be, there are other people that have also just had bad luck, bad experiences, bad events that have led them down a path that they never obviously wanted. Nobody wants to end up in a less fortunate position, but it just happened. And I think we forget that for the most part, a lot of these things are out of our control. Now, there is a lot of negative stigma around this because it can put a huge pressure on individuals, and how if we don't have constant proof of our success and how we've overcome failure, then we're never going to be able to actually get through adversity, because there's so much pressure on, everybody's eyes are on us. And if we can't accomplish what we've set out to, that we're not going to be worth anything. So I really think that we need to actually shift our mentality, because this perspective really dismisses the attitude towards those who struggle, because we're in reality simplifying what could be a very complex social or personal issue that we're now translating into a failing, a personal failing. And this isn't fair, like I said. I think it's also very telling when looking at the self-help industry as a whole, as what it's morphed into. It really serves those that are trying to sell you products and services. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but lately, the more of these self-help gurus and programs that I've ever seen online are really only geared towards financial success. So it's a very superficial form of self-improvement because it only revolves around money. And once again, you're only seen as having accomplished that goal of self-improvement in that program once you've started to make money. And that, I feel, it takes away from the whole substance of what it means to try and pursue growth. I feel like we really need to almost look at the industry as a whole and try and understand the motives behind it. In a way, most people that are trying to just sell you self-improvement are only doing so for their own financial gain, which is only feeding their own ego. So I think we also need to kind of disconnect from the way we look at the industry as a whole, while trying to look more inside our own selves for the growth that really matters to us and in our given situation. We can even look at this one step further. A lot of these self-help gurus and whatnot often say that you need to surround yourself with successful people in order to be successful yourself. But if you really think about it, this can really lead to risks of being inauthentic to your true self. If you're always surrounding yourself and playing this character that's just trying to fit in with all these, more successful, better people, then you're really not actually fulfilling your own goals. You're really not even, you're not able to even be yourself. And we can take this one step further, because the common quote of "you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself" is often so simplistic. And I know that, okay, I'm also guilty of having said this in the past, not so much about the 5 people, but just in general, that you are kind of the outcome of who you surround yourself with as a whole. And I do think that there is a lot of merit behind that. But I think when you boil it down to you are the average of the 5 closest people around you, it really is taking no consideration of any sort of external factors in your living condition and your work situation and your relationships and anything like that. So I really think that it is important that we stop oversimplifying what are truly very complex issues or very complex matters that determine the outcome of our life. It's not just black or white. There is a million shades of gray in between that determine where we're going to actually end up by the end of this life. And I don't mean the grave before that. So I really want to wrap up this episode by urging you guys to approach self-improvement with skepticism. I think there should be a large emphasis placed on the importance of not being swayed by superficial, appealing programs and the allure of spending money on self-improvement products and, saying, oh, if I just buy that one more thing and then I'll be organized, or I'll get that one new app that does this, or I'll buy something and then that'll get me to actually really be complete. I think that we need to step away from the idea that we need more and more and more, when in fact, I think the true growth that we can accomplish really only starts when we actually start disconnecting ourselves from all these material ideologies and these grandeur ideas for success, and just focus on what's important. Focus on just trying to be a better version of you. A better version of you that can contribute to the world, that can help make the world a better place, that can be a light in other people's eyes, that can really just bring value and happiness and positivity to the world, because that is what we need. That's what we need to be a better society. If everybody was looking more out for one another than themselves, the world would be a far, far better place. And I really think that the self-improvement industry is doing a lot of help, but it can also be doing a lot of harm if you're not conscious about it, if you're just kind of being pulled by this appeal of the golden basket at the end, you know? So I think it's important that we can actually take a chance to step back, look at it from afar, and stay critical. I think that's the big thing too. That everything we do in life, stay critical. Look at it from a very objective and logical lens before you just fall into something that you might not actually want or might not be actually serving you. So that's everything, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I have had this kind of stuff on my mind as well, having been exploring this field, and I think that it's very important that we don't get too self-absorbed by sticking with, saying that by sticking to these 5 habits I'm better than you, or or by waking up super early that you're better than someone else, or by journaling, or anything. Everybody's journey is different, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. We acknowledge how important luck is, and we also just agree to be happier and agree to be nicer to one another. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I'm very excited to see you all in the next one. Peace.